And we have said it that tomorrow do not belong to us. They have been cheated for too long.
Mr. Omoyele Sowore, thank you very much for your time to African Middle Australia.
Thank you.
Welcome to Australia.
Thank you.
How's things been since you've arrived?
Great.
All right. Can you please introduce yourself to our audiences?
Yes, my name is Omoyele Sowore. Up until now, up until a few months ago, I used to be the publisher of Sahara Reporters Media Group based out of New York, and now I'm a presidential candidate for the African Action Congress Party in Nigeria's forthcoming election.
Okay. Now, let me start with a simple question about the situation in Nigeria. What's wrong and what's right with Nigeria today?
Probably everything is absolutely wrong. And I can hardly tell you if there's anything right with Nigeria today. Everything is wrong with Nigeria. Everything is wrong with the leadership. Everything is wrong with our economy. Everything is wrong with our culture, tradition, our education. Everything is wrong with our infrastructure. Everything is wrong with our security. Pretty much everything is wrong.
All right, and what's that's the diagnosis? What's the therapy for that?
Therapy is brand new, fresh faces, ideas, capable hands, people with capacity, integrity, pedigree, people with political will, and most importantly, people who can use the exposure, the education and intellect to the benefit and advantage of Nigerians and Nigeria. Because it's not as if we haven't had leaders, we just not been lucky to have leaders who are selfless. We mostly had very greedy, selfish leaders who don't care about us.
Now, you say everything is wrong about Nigeria. Isn't that too pessimistic? There must be something right, something that's working.
Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
The economy in Nigeria is probably the biggest economy in Africa right now.
On paper, yes. But that doesn't make it right.
Okay. Now, why you think you're the man to fix Nigeria?
Oh, it's I've been one of the only few who's been around for 30 years doing what is right by Nigeria. Had a history of fighting for democracy in the country, fighting to stamp out corruption, throwing myself on the front lines when necessary to make the country great, and I have a lot to show for it, including injuries, including injustices, long periods of suppression, expulsion from university, in some cases detention 8 different times, and at some point exile. So, and I've just been around long enough to know the problems and have studied the problems and have tried my hands on solutions on my own that worked. And I just imagine if I have a chance to lead the country, what I can do so quick, so fast, to offer the best services, the right kind of leadership to turn Nigeria around. And there's no question about the fact that nobody has challenged these qualities that I'm telling you about, either openly or privately. And they've only said that they don't think we have enough money because we haven't stolen enough. We don't have enough experience because we don't have experience looting or killing or destroying the country. But everything else is pointing to the right direction, and I'm glad that I have the privilege to enjoy the support of our people at this time to say, look, you are one of the best, if you're not the best, if not the best, to right all the wrongs.
Now, you mentioned yourself about experience. People would say, well, you do need some level of experience before you can pretend to lead one of the biggest economies in Africa and a nation with so many people, more than 100 million. So what do you respond to that?
Oh, I respond to that by telling them that I didn't see Nelson Mandela have any of such kind of experience that they mentioned. I didn't see Barack Obama have an extensive experience governing any country. In fact, the people that have experience are people who once governed a country, and we have tried two of them, former head of state, Olusegun Obasanjo and Buhari, and they've been disastrous. Shows to you that that's not the kind of experience we need. We need people with political will, people that have pedigree, people who are brave and courageous, people who have capacity and character to lead Nigeria. Those are the kind of experiences we need, and I have a lot of that.
Now, more than 50 years after independence, African nations still have old men clinging to power.
Yes.
What do you think is the problem?
The problem is with complacency. I think a lot of Africans are too complacent. They are the ones who accept this nonsense. And the moment you allow an African big man to occupy your political space and you don't challenge them to remind them of the need to leave, then you're responsible for how long they live around and how much of a burden they are to you. So I blame the people, honestly. I blame the people of Cameroon today for allowing the poor Biya, a dinosaur, to continue to remain as their president after how many years? I used to feel the same way about the people of the Gambia until they rose and drove away Yahya Jammeh. I was part of people who challenged Mugabe. In 2015, when he came to Nigeria, I asked him a simple question. He couldn't answer until he left power. When are you going to hand over power? And when are we coming to Zimbabwe to have an inauguration of a new president? That was between me and Fayo Adeola in 2015, during the inauguration of President Buhari. So, honestly, in this particular instance, in cases, I blame the African people who have allowed themselves to be governed for so long by far too reckless individuals. The same to the extent of people of Uganda. As much as I do not like Museveni, I actually hold the people of Uganda responsible for the length of time it's been in power.
Now, you mentioned earlier in the interview that there's something wrong with traditions. Can you expand on that?
Well, we mentioned a lot of problems, including why African leaders remain in power. I think some of our tradition allowed them to happen, particularly this tradition that we have of unregulated culture of respect for elders. When elders are going wrong, we keep saying that we have to respect them. I think that's something that's wrong with our tradition and it's wrong with culture, and we still rely so much on the same kind of traditions that delivered over 50 million into slavery, our traditional rulership systems. I am a professor of post-colonial African history, and I've had to teach students all over the world over 8 years what went wrong with every independent African country, and everywhere we went to send the culture and tradition that has promoted governmental recklessness or impunity. It is part of why I mentioned tradition. If you want me to mention every one of them, we'll probably be here till tomorrow.
That's all right. Well, the reason I asked that because I think there is a problem with the mindset in Africa that is not only allowing corrupt leaders and very old leaders to stay in power. What is the cure for that? How do we change the mindset, the dynamics, the political, social, cultural dynamics to bring about new leaders that will be better for the continent and in the case of Nigeria as well?
Well, I think my best answer to it is for Nigeria to get it right. Because Nigeria then can lead that kind of renaissance or resistance against this kind of corrupt leadership on the continent. The mindset of an average African that allows terrible rulers to continue in office is the fact that over time, these leaders set out to oppress them. They take everything away from them, their dignity, they take away their food, take away their education. And the moment you can capture people's stomachs, you can capture their education system in such a way that you can spread ignorance, it's difficult for you to have people who can resist you, right? Some of the best Africans who could have been resisting African dictators at home have been driven into exile. again, by the kind of very, very complacent and languid followership in the country, that would rather blame the opposition, sorry, or the resistors, than blame the leaders. So each time you go on the streets of Kampala, you find a police officer, you know, an army officer, or the rank and file of the military and security services, beating up people who are resisting oppression. So how did they create these things? Is because over time they have been able to develop, you know, again we go back to culture, very nepotistic and in some cases tribalistic affiliations and supporters and loyalists within the security systems that keeps them going. So it's either, you know, they put their brother there, or they put somebody from their tribe who feels threatened each time such a character is being asked to leave. They're the ones who provide the bulwark of resistance against public resistance, you know, against its leaders. All right, and that is why you keep saying that, and that's why we can. It has to be a complete overhaul of not only the mindset, but even our institutions that are promoting this kind of and supporting and propping up this kind of African dictators.
Coming back to your campaign, you are in Australia and you're going around. How's your connections with the African diaspora in relation to your campaign?
Solid. I've been in diaspora for 19 years myself. I haven't lived in the US for 19 solid years. I came to the US in 1999, and I said to myself that by 2019 I must return home. But I'm not going to return home empty-handed. I'm going to return home to help steer the ship of state in Nigeria in the right direction of peace, progress, and prosperity. And so those of our brothers to whom I've been a reporter for years supporting us, those of our brothers who've seen me in action, brothers and sisters who've seen me in action fighting a lot of these dictators and their representatives in the West, granting us a lot of support. But I must say also that the support is beyond Nigerians. It's coming from Africans who share the same vision as I do, who know that I'm an action-oriented visionary person who wants to see not only the liberation of Nigeria, but the liberation of the African continent, so that Africa as a continent can be a place that Africans can be proud of again, and Black people can be really, really proud of.
What's the best way to facilitate the diaspora's contribution into the development of Africa?
I think it's importantly to harness their skill sets and ideas. And it's easier these days because we have easier ways to communicate. I can be in the US and talk to somebody in Australia. We can virtually have town hall meetings even if we are not physically there. We can transact businesses without having to go through our respective countries. I remember most African countries, until the era of technology, you couldn't set up a media company without having to get permission or a license from the dictator, the big man. But with the advent of social media and internet technology, that has been made possible. I myself set up Sahara Reporters 12 years ago and became one of the biggest African platforms ever because of technology. So the best way to do this is to continue to talk to them, interact and engage with them, and get their advice, their support and ideas, and put all that together and use that as a blueprint to conquer our space back. But it's also important to also get their input financially, because this needs some money to fight back and regain the sanity of our political space.
If you're elected tomorrow, what are the first 3 things you do once you're in power?
I'm going to do 10 things at the same time. So I can't even think of 3 things. There's a lot to be done in Nigeria. I can't wait to hit the ground running, right? It's to the extent that right now we're even forming like shadow cabinets all over the place in Nigeria, so that people are already understudying states, institutions that failed, and how we can revive them at the same time. Because if I tell you I'm going to do 3 things, what will happen to the rest of the 7 things that needs to be done, you know? Of course, my priority will be the security of the Nigerian person within Nigeria. Our priority would be electricity, power, energy in general, infrastructure. Priority will be fighting corruption, putting in place a brand new political economic system that favors the African person within Africa, not the one that prepare Africa for exploration, and to have a lot of discussion around how we interrelate as peoples, as ethnic groups, as nations within, or nationalities within the nation state of Africa, and to have groundbreaking health initiatives, education, have Africa have food security so that everybody's not going out there claiming that they're trying to help Africa to feed itself.
But more specifically, let's say, for example, in corruption, what are you going to do? What do you think needs to be done, and what you're going to do to start fighting corruption?
It would be unfair to ask me what I'm going to do to start. I already started fighting corruption 12 years ago with our reporters. But I think what we need to do is to go after corrupt persons on the continent, well, in Nigeria in particular, ensuring that they don't escape justice. What has been the main reason why corruption is perpetuated and continue to be a problem is because people who are corrupt get away with their corruption. They get away with their loot, pretty much. And not only do they get away with their loot, their collaborators in the West and sometimes in the East also get away with helping them to take what is left for African brothers and sisters. So one is to block the drainage, ensuring that it is drained and making sure that African wealth is not frittered away through Western banks, and whatever belongs to Africa is used to develop Africa, and to finally make sure those who have stolen, who have destroyed, who have cornered the Commonwealth, that we take it back from them.
And what would be your final message to people out there in the diaspora or beyond who are listening to you? Why should they trust you to lead Nigeria tomorrow?
Yes, people in the diaspora, Nigeria needs you. And I particularly need your support so that we can help move Nigeria in the best position, or number one position, on the continent of Africa, starting from next year. February 2019 is when the election will happen. You can trust me because I have done everything humanly possible for 30 years to ensure that Nigeria gets to the position of democracy, that I fight corruption on my own and help to expand democratic space in Nigeria and beyond Nigeria. I am a fighter for freedom of expression, an environmentalist. Everything you can imagine that a human being could do who's an African to make his world a better place, I have done. And I hope you will join me in ensuring that we do the same for Nigeria this time around, in such a way that the continent of Africa can benefit directly from it. Wherever you may be, it is time to go rescue Nigeria. And I hope you join us.
All right, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, we thank you very much for your time to African Media Australia and wish you good luck for your campaign.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Clyde.
No worries.
Say something, Nigerians.
Take it back.
Take it back.
Take it back. Action. Fight.
Right.
Nigeria, wake up from your PTSD. Wake up. Vote the right people.
Yeah.
Don't recycle junks.
AAC.
Take it back.
AAC.
Take it back.
Take it back.